Hi, I'm Michelle Williams, and I'm here with Kim and Shane Bevins from Canada. And I've asked them to give their testimony for you. They have recently joined our team. And Kim and Shane, we know that we have known you for a while. We've heard your story. But I thought maybe other people would really benefit from what you've been through and how you ended up helping us in Marriage 911 God's Way.
I would say our story began about 5 years ago. And I would say God was working in me first. He was preparing me for the trials to come. Didn't know what those were. I thought we were doing okay at the time, but of course God knows more. He sees what's going to happen. And so after our marriage imploded and God was shaking out every inch of our lives and every area of sin and every area that we had neglected, He began a work of healing in myself and in Shane as an individual.
My story really goes back to just me making decisions for myself, thinking that, you know what, I believe in Jesus, I believe in Him in the Trinity, but not trusting His guidance in my life. And that's really where He had to work in me to get our marriage back on track. So me not putting trust in Jesus was where my faults began, and by me pushing Jesus aside, really faulted our marriage and who I was as a husband and a father. By doing that, I failed. I couldn't do it on my own. I thought I could, but I didn't, and really failed not only my wife, but my children, our families, and that's really the beginning of my story. Is trusting in Jesus was the beginning of hope in our marriage.
And I think you know, as Shane was struggling with his own relationship with Christ, I as well was focusing on my relationship with Christ. And I think that's so important to emphasize that we had lost our individuality in our marriage, and we were just Shane and Kim all the time. There was no just Kim and just Shane. And so I love that this ministry focuses in on your individual relationship with Christ, and that is where our healing began, was as individuals.
When you were originally telling us your testimony, you mentioned, Shane, that you thought you wanted out of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You had found out that he had walked away from the marriage, and you said you heard God speak to you. Can you share a little bit about that, because people watching may identify with what you experienced?
So me being the culmination of our marriage, at the point of us knowing that it was either do or die, was sitting in our room one night, me being at the bottom of the bottom. And I've always said it's like sitting at the bottom of a dark barrel and not being able to see any light in there whatsoever. But in that moment, God entered not only our bedroom, but our marriage and our lives, both together and individually, which was really cool to me to see. But just sitting on the edge of my bed, knowing that the big mess that I made in my life and in our marriage and my kids' lives was God placing His hand on my back and using two words in my soul that said, "Trust me." And without taking away from her story, our 2 points hit together at that exact moment.
And in that same moment, you know, as we were arguing and unsure of what the future was, God had whispered in my ear just one word, and a word that I don't recall using in my dialect daily, or even, you know, something that I would have thought of, but He whispered the word covenant to me, and that just broke through any resentment or judgment or any hard feelings, and it just filled me with His grace. And that was such a gift that I was able to receive from him. And in that, I was able to give that gift to my husband and to our marriage, and just fully invest and start moving forward with him leading us in the way that he knew we should go.
And then when you decided to both work on the marriage, you said that you had just gotten a job at your church. Your pastor reached out to you. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of it, that it was for you to have someone come along beside you, to have people there, people with skin, Jesus with skin on, so to speak?
Yeah.
What was that like, and why do you feel that's so important in the ministry?
I think that sometimes as people in this world, or even in the church, we feel we're alone. We feel that nobody else has gone through or could understand the pain that we are going through or have been through. And to be able to walk into the office of my pastor and know that I would be received with love and kindness, and that he as well would receive my husband and our marriage and just walk alongside of us and guide us, using Christ as our beacon and using the Bible as the word of truth, was so comforting and just unexplainably peaceful in the midst of this turmoil and this tornado of a mess we had made together. There was an underlying peace that I can't explain and that I'll value forever.
Now, on the practical side of it, I had already said that I failed. So trying to do things by myself, I failed. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And having somebody who has a community around you, not just somebody, but a community around you that has no judgment. They love you for who you are. We all make mistakes. And knowing, like Kim just said, that God's truth is center on any movement forward or back together or reconciliation in our marriage, but having an accountability around some of the mistakes that we have made, that I make, and again, people that just love you and hold you accountable in those moments of weakness. Or
it wasn't an easy journey. Like, it was difficult at times, but I think recognizing that there was hope and that it's possible, that it doesn't have to end the way that the world thinks it should end, was wonderful. It was just so encouraging, to be in a crisis and to know that you're loved and that there's hope and that there's a way through this, with God walking alongside you.
And that really is the crux of the ministry, Marriage Number One, God's Way, is that we've created the support system. We have our regional marriage ambassadors all across really the world now, and you two representing parts of Canada. And we know the importance of having people that understand. So, regardless of what you've been through or what you might be going through right now in your marriage, we're here. We're a ministry that cares. We, believe it or not, we pray for you. We prayed for you when my husband Joe and I were writing the workbook and the Yes, Your Marriage Can Be Saved book. We prayed for the people that might read it someday. And so I want to thank you for just coming and sharing your testimony like this, and so that we can post it for others to see. And thank you for following God and for doing what was right and for heeding what He told you in that moment.
It's
Thank
our
you,
honor.
you too.
Thank you.
thank you.